let's start with McLaren because they're having quite a good season, aren't they? Not too bad whatsoever. 16 out of a possible 18 podiums to this point in the season. And the Spanish Grand Prix, of course, a 1-2 finish, their third of the season. Sam, more McLaren dominance here in Canada?
I think you'd be a little naive now, wouldn't you, if you started to think that, they're going to rock up here and they're going to be terrible for literally no reason whatsoever. Yeah, I think it's a given now that much like when we've had the dominance of Red Bull over previous years and before that, Mercedes, they're going to be in the mix. They're going to be in the fight. And it's more about whether a team is able to actually bring the fight to them. The gap we saw in Spain was audacious. It felt like they had maybe half a second on the field at some points and they were able to just pull away. Only Max Verstappen was able to really cling on with his very aggressive three-stop strategy. Although I do think that it might actually be Mercedes that turn up here. They've been very positive over this season, much more of a jack of all trades, I've said a few times, and they do seem to be coping better in mixed conditions. Canada famously has quite a lot of mixed conditions. We see a smattering of rain. It doesn't ever get too hot. You never see like, oh gosh, boiling like you do in Spain. Warm, but not cooking. And the Mercedes likes it to be a little bit cooler. So if we get one of those weekends, you remember George Russell got pole here last year, the same time as Max Verstappen, but did it before him. I think there's a real chance that they could be a bit of a dark horse and cause some interesting results higher up the field. So, yeah, I do think McLaren are the favourites. I think it's probably going to be between Piastri and Norris. But if I were to put money on anyone else getting involved in the fight, I think Georgie Russ could have a good time around here.
Harry, would you put more McLaren dominance on the table, or do you think they might be pegged back a little bit here?
I think they'll be the favourites for sure, but I would hazard a guess they will be not as dominant as they were in Spain. I think it'll be closer here this weekend. Like Sam mentioned, there could be mixed conditions at Canada, and this track rewards bravery more than others. It's like Monaco in that respect. It's often called a street circuit, even though it's not really a street circuit, kind of a street circuit. And yeah, it rewards the bravery of the driver, especially through some of the chicanes. You know, the last chicane with the World Champions. Getting right up against the wall is very important for your lap time. So, whilst I expect McLaren to be the fastest car again this weekend, and like Sam said, I think you'd be naive now to say, well, no, maybe they won't be. Whilst I think they're going to be the fastest car, I think the others will be in the mix more than they were in Spain, definitely. And you could see the likes of, as you said, Mercedes, even without the mixed conditions, go pretty well here. I think Hamilton had a podium here in 2023 as well. So they seem to go pretty well. And it's certainly a chance for Max Verstappen to do Max Verstappen things. Ferrari, maybe.
Who knows? Honestly, they might even turn up to Canada. They might be in the wrong place.
Well, they didn't last year.
They went well here last year.
Oh, yeah. Really, really didn't affect their season at all when it came down to the wire.
But that's the baseline, to be fair. Good news.
That's true.
You can't be worse than last year.
They might find a way.
Harry Eads' fantasy team. The only way is up.
Correct. I'd expect these teams to be more in the mix than they were in Spain. Not just over qualifying, I think over a race distance as well. There's a lot of attrition normally in Canada as well. So yeah, I think we're in for a closer weekend.
I think it is incredibly likely that McLaren are dominant again because, well, that's kind of all we've seen so far this year. And it's been, again, the consistency to just perform absolutely everywhere that makes me think that even with Canada's unique challenge, they'll still probably rise to it. But yeah, Canada doesn't, as you kind of alluded to, it doesn't always follow the rule book. Like it doesn't always follow the trends that you see throughout a season. And we've seen typically dominant teams not quite perform as well here versus other races. If we look at the last couple of years, Red Bull, like 2024, yes, they were starting to head into their sort of mid-season where they weren't as dominant, but it was a really close race last year between three teams, like Mercedes and McLaren were in the mix there. And even in 2023, this is going to sound a bit ridiculous, but such was the dominance of Verstappen in 2023. he only won this race back to Alonso in second by, I think, about 10 seconds.
Sorry, Adam, pause. Who was in second in 2023?
I know, mate. Fernando Alonso was in second in 2023. It sounds ridiculous that 10 seconds is considered a small margin, but Red Bull at the time, that was a small margin. Like Verstappen was winning races regularly by 15, 20, 25 seconds back then. So yeah, it doesn't always follow the rule book, but again, McLaren have just excelled at all types of races this year. Every test they've passed, whether it's been wet weather, that wasn't an issue. Warm temperatures, cold temperatures, absolutely fine. Monaco, very unique challenge, no issue there. So I'm still leaning towards they'll be quite good. In terms of their two drivers, Sam, they're 1-1 in the last two races. Lando Norris took the win in Monaco. Piastri took the win in Spain. Do you look at either of them as a particular favourite here, or is it going to be close to 50-50?
I think looking at previous years' trending is maybe not the right way to go now. We're really settled into this season. Early season, when we didn't know how good this car was going to be or just how good Piastri was going to be, you could kind of defer to last season and go, well, Norris did very well here. Piastri maybe not so much. It will go that way again. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Piastri is on such a strong learning curve. The way his race management is better. Tyres are so much better generally. His mixed condition driving, I think, is going to be improved. This is a weekend where I think Piastri could really separate himself from Norris and maybe the rest of the pack. I think he will do. I just think the headspace sits with Piastri. He's a much stronger-minded driver. I think the challenge of Montreal will be easier for him to overcome. And Lando Norris is again on the back foot. He was bested by Piastri in Spain, and quite comfortably at every turn, Piastri was able to match what Norris was doing and then level it up again. And Norris could never get close, even after that poor start. And a poor start in Canada could be very costly. You know, it's a thinner track. It's much narrower. So if you can't get enough to get an overtake done and you end up losing 5-6 seconds in the opening few laps, it can be very costly around here. So for me, the favourite sits on Piastri's side. But Lando Norris is a fantastic racing driver, and I'm not ruling it out that he might smash it out the park. Who knows?
Harry, we've referred to this season so far as a bit of a qualifying championship, really across the board, but particularly with the McLarens out front. Is this going to be another case where whichever McLaren driver triumphs on Saturday will probably also triumph on Sunday?
I think that's probably is the case, yes. But like I said, I think Canada's a bit of a unique one on the calendar. So I don't think it's all done by the end of Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening over here. I also think Lando Norris's Monaco performance bodes well for him going into this weekend, given, you know, what this track is like. And as I mentioned, you know, you've got to be brave across the curves, up against the barriers. He was comfortably better than Piastri at that race. Easily the biggest margin between them, I think, all season that way round. So that in itself, I think, bodes well for Norris going into this one. But you're right. I think, you know, qualifying once again will be super important. Remains to be seen what the strategy will end up like during the race. But yeah, I think if you're out in front, you can control the pace, which we've seen Piastri do beforehand quite comfortably. So Saturday is going to be a very important one. And as you mentioned already, Sam, it's quite a close one here normally, with Russell and Verstappen getting exactly the same time in 2024. So it's going to be a intense quali session, I think.
Tell you a lot. That would be spicy if that happened again, given recent circumstances between the two.
Keep those two firmly apart.
Oh, no,
I don't like that.
I've suffered enough abuse. Please, no more.
Yeah, I think over the course of this season, we've learned that they are so close in terms of pace that for the most part, qualifying will probably dictate it. I was thinking back to all of the races that they've had so far this year, and you already mentioned Monaco as kind of one race where Norris seemed to have the upper hand on Piastri. It might be the only race so far this year that there has been a real difference between the two drivers. I know there have been some other races where, at least in terms of finishing position, it's been wider. So we've had like Saudi Arabia maybe or Bahrain, where it's a 1-3 and not a 1-2. But in both of those circumstances, Norris is recovering from a poor qualifying, and it was a bit more difficult to get a true read on what each of their pace was. Similarly with Imola, like strategy, they just went a completely different way, again, to the point where it was really difficult to judge pace-wise exactly where they were up against each other. And for the most part, like, you think Spain, even Miami, again, wasn't that close on track. But once Norris had cleared Verstappen, it was pretty close between the two. It has been such a tight battle all year long. And I think of the 9 races, it's really only Imola and Miami where the better qualifying McLaren hasn't then also been the better race McLaren. And again, in both of those circumstances, it wasn't really pace that separated them. It was either strategy, or in the case of Miami, it was what happened with Verstappen on lap 1. So yeah, I would maybe make Piastri a marginal favourite because he's been more consistent in Q3 so far this year, but neither result would shock me. Sam, when you alluded to who might challenge McLaren this weekend, you immediately went to Mercedes and potentially George Russell, and not to Max Verstappen. Do you think he could be a factor, or might he, I don't know, take a step back whilst Mercedes are the bigger threat this weekend?
Max Verstappen is always a factor. He, incident or not in Spain, he is the best driver on this racetrack, in this calendar, in this Formula Series that we have. He is so far above everyone else. And if you put him in that McLaren, I have no doubt that he could probably go on to win every single race so far this season. It's that comfortable, I think. So, no, I don't think he'll hesitate. I don't think he'll hold back. He likes this racetrack. He's done well previously at this racetrack. I think it is a bit of a driver's track, which he'll have fun at. If we get the mixed conditions, Max Verstappen, I think, is by far the best wet weather driver that we've got at the moment on the grid as well. He is not the kind of guy that goes, I've got some penalty points, I'll just take it easy. I'm just going to take it easy, No chance. He will make sure that he is there or thereabouts fighting for a race win or a podium. And I'm enjoying that immensely because it will be spicy. So thank you, Max Verstappen, for being you, because I appreciate it.
I feel like Imola was encouraging because Imola, and this is, by the way, top tier analysis here. Imola, a lot of chicanes. Canada, a lot of chicanes.
Basically every corner bar 1 is a chicane at Canada, isn't it?
Yeah. 4 big old chicanes around the track. And if he was really good at Imola. So there is, I think, a chance of that carrying over. And again, of the 9 races so far, I think he's been the biggest threat to McLaren at 6 of them. The only 3 that he hasn't, I think, have been China, where it was George Russell, Bahrain, again, where it was George Russell, and Monaco, where it was the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. But I think every other race, Verstappen has been like the closest challenge, if not winning the race on 2 of those occasions. Harry, do you think Verstappen's approach will be edited in any way this weekend?
No, I mean, I can't believe you just called Max Verstappen a chicane merchant, is what we were saying there.
Yeah.
Don't come for me, Verstappen fans. You've heard that. Get him.
On hairpins, I would say he's in the bottom 20% of the grid.
I can't believe it. I cannot believe what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you get him out of his comfort zone, he's like a poor man's Rubens Barrichello, really, isn't he?
Right. Okay.
What about right angle things?
Yeah, he's okay. I mean, maybe on the level of Grosjean or someone like that.
No, you've got it confused. I'm asking about right angle bends.
Oh, right.
Oh.
90-degree bends. Sure. No, Max Verstappen doesn't know the meaning of changing his approach. He hasn't changed his approach since he joined in 2015, quite frankly. He might have matured, but it's still the same approach to the way he goes racing. So, no, he won't be put off by the looming penalty points. It's just not in his nature. It's kind of Schumacher-esque in that respect, isn't he? He is right. And if you think he's wrong, you're wrong because he's right. And that's the way he goes racing. And that's part of the reason why he's so good. So, it's that self-belief, but yeah, I don't see him changing his ways this weekend at all.
I literally have written down in my notes in front of me, he has a Schumacher-esque belief that he is always right. That is the case. And if he always thinks he's right, and again, Schumacher had it, Senna had it, Verstappen has it, why would he change? Because he thinks he's right with everything he does. Like there's no, you can't follow the logic through at all. I don't think he will update his approach at all. And to be honest, I think that's the right thing, because I get that he can't afford a race ban, but he also he just can't afford not to be himself because of the way the championship is running at the moment. Like he has to take every opportunity that's presented in front of him. And if he starts second guessing himself about what moves to go for and not go for, you're not going to see the Verstappen that has made him so brilliant over the last decade in F1. So I don't think he will change his approach. And quite honestly, I don't think he should. Also, I just want to see the fallout if he did get a penalty and what Red Bull would do with their seats, because I don't even think they would know.
I really want George Russell to just like be really mildly irritating all weekend to him. You know, when someone's like throwing a bit of paper at the back of your head in the classroom, it's just like, don't react to it. Don't react to it. I just want to see him like flip the table.
Do you reckon Sebastian Buemi would get in the seat at long last?
No, I think Daniel Kvyat will have it.
As you know, my handwriting isn't the best handwriting in the world. My handwriting can only get worse when I am making notes on a train that is moving at quite a rapid pace. So I have written down a quote here from James Vowles. If I can get through it without like second guessing a word, I will be shocked. But here goes.
Buckle up, everyone.
After the Spanish GP, James Vowles said, "We took the opportunity of the front wing regulation change to do a small aerodynamic update. And the car we ran in Barcelona is a faster car than we had at Imola or Miami or races before that, thanks to that update." Goodness me, well done, Ben. Harry, can they bounce back in Canada?
Yeah, I think they will. I think we've seen it before with Williams, and definitely way less so than nowadays than we used to. But there were just some tracks that they stink at. And at the moment, for this car, it's Spain. And I think it just was not good at that track. A car that has gone so well at so many other races this year, I don't believe is suddenly that's its pace now. I think it was quite track specific. I don't think the car liked it. And so I do expect them to bounce back this weekend. I think they will have a car that suits this kind of the track way more than Barcelona. So, I'm not saying that. I don't want to suggest they're going to bounce back to entirely where they were beforehand, but I think they're going to be way more competitive than they were in Spain. And it's hard to know whether they actually would have ended up in the race because they just kept smashing off front wings left, right, and centre. But they may have got further up than it looked, and then it looked even worse given the incidents that they had during the race. But their overall, outright speed wasn't good in Barcelona. But I don't expect that to be the case here. Again. So yeah, I'd expect a Williams bounce back in Montreal.
Would you agree, Sam?
Yeah, I will be shocked if they struggled as much as they did in Barcelona. Barcelona is hot with a lot of long sweeping corners. Canada, I would think, would be much cooler even in July, and its track dynamics are much more kind of quick, nippy corners that you get through very quickly, and you're back onto a straight, back onto full power. Yes, Harry, what do you want to say?
Quick nip.
Very good. That's great input from you. I'll be proud. So I think that the track will much suit that car better. That sentence made that structure of that was terrible.
I think all the right words were there, just the ordering might have been slightly off.
It's the quick nip. It's gone to my mind.
Well, it always does.
Good. Also, you remember last year, whilst Carlos Sainz was having a stinker in that Ferrari, as was Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon pulled off one of the filthiest moves we've ever seen and snuck round the outside and then down the inside of two separate cars into the final corner and got a double overtake done. So the lad likes it here. He's had a brilliant season basically before Monaco, where it was really, really great for him. I think he'll bounce back. I think Sainz is looking for a good result again. So yeah, I think the characteristics of Canada really suit the Williams car. And if James Vowles believes that their car is faster, well, in James Vowles we trust, and I believe him too. So they're going to be second and third now. That's not my bold prediction.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever Daddy Vowles says is gospel. So I'm all aboard the positive hype train for Williams getting back to something close to where they were before. I like you've both kind of said, the Spanish GP going into it, they were like, yeah, we're going to suck here. And you know what? They sucked. They were real bad. And even with the front wings and not having any of them left, it's not like they had outstanding pace. There was a reason why Carlos Sainz was one of the slowest cars in Q1. There's a reason why Alex Albon, who has consistently made Q3 this year, wasn't able to do so. It was a bad weekend, but they knew it was going to be a bad weekend. But remember that essentially came off the back of, if we're excluding Monaco, 2 5th place finishes for Alex Albon in both Miami and Imola, which, given again, like Williams have had this a bit of an issue of being really competitive at some places and not competitive at all at others. Miami and Imola aren't that similar. So that was pretty encouraging that they could get good results at both of those tracks. And you're right, they have been solid at Canada in the past. I think Albon was 7th here in 2023, which was their joint best result of that year. So I think they will bounce back, which leads on to the next question, Sam, of how much they bounce back. We saw in Miami, for example, they were not only battling Ferrari, they were beating Ferrari. Can they get back into that fight with whoever like the 3rd or 4th fastest team is?
I don't know if they can be right up there with Ferrari. As Harry likes to say, there's something in that Ferrari. And you never know. I do think that Ferrari have seen some progression, especially with Charles Leclerc. He was obviously brilliant in Monaco. He had a really good race but in Imola, but strategy, of course, denied him any real progress and ended up behind Lewis Hamilton. And also Spain was really positive for him. His pace was good. The strategy was working out well. And yeah, there was carnage at the end and then he moved up a place or so, but he was in the fight and his pace was good to deliver that as well. So I think that he's a real risk to the front runners rather than actually being troubled by Williams behind. But I do think that Williams might be fighting maybe with Kimi Antonelli, maybe Lewis Hamilton, depending on how that pace looks, how their understanding of the car goes. And I wouldn't be shocked if they are comfortably fighting between the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th places and not really being bothered by the likes of an Alpine or a Haas or a Sauber. I do think they will comfortably be further on from that midfield battle now.
1-2 for Williams, Harry?
Yeah, easily, I think. Yes, it's nailed on. Yeah. No, I think like I said, I think they are going to be more competitive. I'm slightly skeptical or dubious as to say whether they will be right back where they were, like fighting with Ferrari, because I think Ferrari have, I know it doesn't seem like it, but I think they have made a slight step forward with that car. So whether Williams can keep up, but if we believe James Vowles, and we do, then that car with its update is supposed to be faster than it was beforehand. It just didn't like Spain. So maybe the Williams car has made that step forward too. It remains to be seen, but certainly more competitive than Spain. I mean, that's not difficult, but back nearer to where they were pre-Spain.
I do think at some point in this season, with Williams deprioritizing this year compared to next year, I think there will be a point where they start to drop off maybe a little bit compared to their rivals. I don't think we're there yet, though. I still think they can bounce back and compete with whichever team out of Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes isn't on it this weekend. Now, we don't know which one that will be. In Miami, for example, it was Ferrari. It might be the same again this weekend. It might be Mercedes. Who knows? But I think they can take advantage of any top team that is just slightly underperforming. They'll be hoping that my chicane theory is correct for them as well, because again, they were good at Imola. Imola has chicanes. So does Canada. So if that's true, then maybe Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz can be in the mix for a top 5 finish. Who knows? Again, Albon's already done it 3 times this year. Sam, you've already mentioned Mercedes and not necessarily liking hot temperatures. At the moment, it looks like it will be somewhere in the low 20s, so significantly cooler than what it was at Barcelona. will that be the thing that gets Russell back into the hunt for a podium?
I think Russell will get Russell back into the hunt for a podium. Good opinion there, Sam. Nice one. Genuinely, he's been that good this season. He's had a couple of down races, but I do think that directly correlates with the car not being as good as it has been over the first 5 or 6. Basically, up to Imola, that car seemed really, really positive, and Russell was able to elevate it further. Very much doing what Verstappen has been doing in that Red Bull, and Leclerc has been doing in that Ferrari, picking up the car and really dragging it up the grid. And Russell has been very much doing that. There's a reason why we call him the burglar. And I think that trend will resume in Canada. I think that the Mercedes, whilst it has become better in warm conditions, it has become better in its tyre management, especially in the hot weather, and it is no longer porpoising like we saw over the last few years, like a real issue with the bouncing, especially down the big straights. The car will still benefit from having the cooler track temperatures. And it has gone well here historically, as we've already gone through on the show. So I think Russell will be able to be a constant threat throughout this Grand Prix, unlike previous races where they seem to really fall off the back of things. They had to invent a certain way to get forward. Of course, Russell had to do the undercut on Lewis Hamilton in Spain to try and get in front of him. Ferrari, of course, blind to that happening to them more than once in a Grand Prix, apparently. So don't do that again, Ferrari.
Just but I do think the haters is fun.
Blacking out the haters. I think Russell will be a real competitive threat here. I do think he will be fighting in around the podium positions. I hope Antonelli can elevate himself, because we were really complimentary of Antonelli at the start of the season. Obviously got pole in Miami for the sprint. He seemed to have kind of a fast but silly pace going on for a rookie. That's totally fine. But in the last couple of Grand Prix, 2 or 3, we've really started to lose the fast, and yet we're also losing the silly. He's just becoming a bit mundane, and I don't want that for Kimi Antonelli. I want to see no braking, purple sectors, and then in a wall. And so hopefully he does all that without the wall bit, and we see a great result. So yeah, come on, Kimi, give us something.
Speaking of,
I'll say there are no chicanes on Kimi Antonelli's track map of Canada. It's just
he just sees it as a mini jump.
Yeah. Just a curb to jump over.
Ramp.
Speaking of that side of the garage, Harry, I feel like the last 3 races, the last triple header, DNF, last DNF. 2 of them not his fault. One of them very much his fault with Monaco qualifying. It felt like a bit of a baptism of fire, maybe just a bit of a, you know what, you've had your start, but welcome to F1. Yeah. It's tough, Kimi.
The F1 gods said, yeah, you need to grow up, son. It was bound to happen. You're right. I still think the fast and silliness, if we're calling it that, but the maybe slight recklessness of Antonelli is there, as seen in Monaco qualifying. It obviously backfired pretty spectacularly in that one. Spain, I think, was easily his weakest race, certainly versus Russell. And I'm not sure whether that was more just the experience Russell has. It's certainly with managing tire degradation. That was a really tough race to manage your tires in, and I think that probably showed. So Antonelli's still learning, but he could do with just a good weekend. It doesn't have to be blinding, just a good one. Get some points back on the board again. Be a bit closer to Russell. And you're right, Russell does go well here. He was good here last year. The year before, he was a bit stinky because he crashed out, I seem to remember. But he did, yes. Generally pretty good around this track, if you exclude 2023 on that one. But I think, for Antonelli, just be a bit closer to Russell pace-wise this weekend and score a solid result just to boost that confidence back.
Quote, bit stinky. Don't tell me that you don't get top tier analysis on the Late Breaking F1 podcast.
You're welcome.
Shall we move swiftly on to some bold predictions?
Gather around, little children, and listen to my song about my F1 bold predictions and how they'll all be wrong.
Well, Live Laugh Latifi, you're wrong, because they weren't all wrong last week or last race. We now have between us 2 correct bold predictions for the season. Sam, you held the lead early on. You can go ahead with your one here.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, hopefully we can make it 3 bold predictions correct across the season when I'm done. Across the whole weekend, all sessions, that's how specific I'm getting with my bold predictions, so I'm keeping the time frame open. Lando Norris will bing it in the Wall of Champions.
Oh, we're going to get into this whole thing about what binning it is, aren't we?
No, I mean he will
He's going to scrape the wall, isn't he? He's binned it.
No, I'm talking severe damage. Might not be a total DNF, but I'm talking proper front wing off or a wheel's gone, severe puncture. It has to be proper hardcore damage.
We talk if it's practice or qualifying, it's like brings out the red flag level of crash.
The guy's got to immediately come in a box and have repairs on the car. Yeah.
It's going to come in from there, to be honest. But right, okay. So Norris is going to absolutely bin it. Harry, you need a point. What's going to get you your point?
Probably not this, but the top 4 in qualifying will be separated by a 10th or less.
I love that. I love that a lot.
Like that. I will. Where can I sign up for that, please?
Right here, son.
Like that.
Right here.
You can sign on Harry's chest.
My bold prediction is centered around the number 3 because I think in the race there will be 3 safety cars.
I love that as well.
Ooh. Full course.
So I'm happy to aid in yours, Ben, if you will aid in mine.
Oh, okay, yeah. If Norris bins it, gets the 1 safety car.
Sure.
Yeah, all right.
I'll help you on your way if you get me over the line.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the 4 in qualifying might be unconnected from these 2, but we'll find a way to tie them all together.
Some clever person will do the maths.
Harry, what's pole 1, 2, 3 looking like?
Pole position is going to go to Lando Norris. The win is going to go to Lando Norris. I've got Piastri second. I have the burglar, George Russell, in third.
I have got pole position, Oscar Piastri, the win, Oscar Piastri, second place, Lando Norris, third place, Max Verstappen. Sam?
I have got pole Piastri, the win Piastri, second place, Max Verstappen, third place, Russell.
All righty.
Pole Piastri is like Oscar's Polish relative.
Knows Robert Kubica well.
That's baby pole.
Hey, if you want to follow in anyone's footsteps at Canada, Robert Kubica is your guy as long as you pick the right year.
I say there's another year you don't want to follow in
the right
footsteps.
2008, please, not 2007.